Maybe. My lighting look okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Come on in. Let's see who's coming in here. All right. Come on in. We got a front row seat for you. Adam, welcome to the event. Yeah, David, good. We're about to get started. We're about 2 minutes and counting. Judy, are you set to go here?
I am good to go, Kirk. This is great.
Yeah, 1 minute and counting. Michael, come on up to the front row.
You've got an amazing group. Look at all these folks. Holy crow.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So, hey, as you come in, just to get a feel for who's in the room, if you go to the Q&A box and put in what city you're webinaring into, just so we know who's in the room here. All right, people coming in. I see somebody has their hand raised. It'd be easier if you put your question into the Q&A box. Question, comment.
Wow,
Yeah,
look at
Long
that.
Island, look at
San
that.
Antonio, Georgia.
Orlando.
Fantastic. Hey, Andrew, Baltimore, close to home.
Go Hawks, I love it.
Peter, welcome from Silver Spring. Got a bunch of Michiganders.
Yeah, Baltimore, South Carolina.
Excellent.
London, very good.
Wow, is that London, England?
Yeah. Learn about some federal government contracting dinner time. Nothing could be better. Buffalo, my mother's from that area.
I'm from Stony Creek. I was born in Stony Creek, just a little north of the Canadian border.
Very nice.
In Buffalo.
It's a small world. Say what you want, but it sure has been nice to connect with so many more people in the last few months this way. I mean, we adapt.
We do. I think that I'm having different and deeper conversations with people I might never have met otherwise. That includes everyone here. So Kirk, thank you so much for telling me about 2% Mastermind. What a great way to go, and giving the opportunity for us to get to know each other in community. And I am really curious about who's here as well. And so you had some questions you were going to start asking people. So it is time.
Yep, we got Peter from Silver Spring. I'm gonna give just 30 seconds more.
Okay.
For folks to log in here.
I'm really curious as well. I mean, there are people that I know, my friends that I invited, and 2%ers that you invited, and there are other folks that I know neither of us have met before. So if you are new to this, is your first time meeting me and Kirk, put new in the chat box so that we know that and a special welcome to you. Thank you so much for coming and for being curious and spending a little time, because time is all we've got. And we're honored that you've decided to spend this time with us.
Yep, and Ben, I can see your comment. You asked if we can see you. We can definitely see your comment. The cameras are turned off just because there's so many people in the room. We can't have the cameras and microphones going both ways. But we're at time, so let's launch here. Just to introduce myself, my name is Kirk. I am the CEO of Foresight CFO. In addition, I teach the same thing at Georgetown University to grad students. I like grad students because they have real world experience, and pulling that from them and kind of guiding the course based on what they care about. It's just a much more enjoyable experience. So what we do at Foresight CFO is we help CEOs win more customers, keep the ones they have the right people, access to capital, and that top percentile financial performance. And that's why Judy and I met years ago, and she is a real expert on literally winning government contractors. So it's that that growing the top line, perfect complement to what we do. So I'm glad, Judy, that you were able to join us. And you want to introduce yourself to get the ball rolling here? We'll ask some polling questions of people in the room.
That would be great. And Kirk, thank you. And thank you to all of you for making me so welcome. You can flip the next slide. That would be great. I am here to bring you the best of my experience in the federal market. So we've got some polls coming up. So let's really, each of us, get an understanding of who we're in the room with as we create some safe space for lots of questions and lots of learning. So would you fill out the polls? We're going to leave this open for about 60 seconds or so. So point and click, and love to hear a little bit about what your revenue top line number is last 12 months, whether or not you're currently earning revenue in the federal space, And yes or no, that's an easy one. And your top federal challenge right now, is that to decide whether or not you're going to do work in the federal market, or you're already in, but your big challenge is getting in front of the right federal buyers. And I'll say more about that in a minute.
Yep.
Are you concerned about winning enough to keep your GSA schedule? I know some folks you got invited partly because you do have a GSA schedule, but it's not an easy contract to keep and maintain. Are you concerned about increasing your win rate, writing better proposals? Or is your top concern finding more work we can win? Those are the questions. So can you see is the voting going on, Kirk?
Yep. Yeah, it's happening. So, hey, your responses are anonymous, right? We'll flash up statistically the summary responses, but your individual response is anonymous and will remain anonymous. It just gives us we got it 71%, and we're shooting for 71, 70%.
All right, let's do it. Vote early and often, or at least once. All right, let's see. Let's count them down 30 seconds and then we'll close the poll. So we're not going to hang out here forever. But again, quick revenue range. Are you in or out of the federal government market? And GovCon revenue, if you're a prime contractor or a sub, but there is a federal buyer dollar at the end of your food chain, that counts, okay? So that might help you answer question 2. And is your top federal challenge, decide if you're in, get in front of the right buyers, keep your schedule, better proposals, work you can win, all right? All right, you ready to close it in 3, 2, 1. Okay, Kirk, what do we got?
Wrapped it up. I'm going to share the results with everyone here.
Okay.
This is what we got in the room right here. We got top line revenue numbers, right? And then currently in, so 18%, 30% are in the government space. So 70% are here to see, is this a new space? Hey, just to share with you, our clients who are GovCons have, they have a customer who's still paying. They have not been impacted significantly, whereas on the commercial side, the range runs from 90% down to 4 times more demand for products and services. So it could be a good time to really evaluate the GovCon space. There you go. All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And that takes us right to our mission today. So could we pop to the next slide? We're here to go through 7 steps to winning federal business, a roadmap to success. Next slide. I'm here to bring you my best of over 32 years as a subject matter expert and specialist in federal contracting. I bring proven strategies that drive revenue, and I've also written a book or 2, about which more, but let's get to it. Our mission today is to identify the next milestone on your road to the next federal win. So here we go. I'm going to be drawing from 7 steps that people take when they're successful in the federal market, which are also the core of my book. Strategy. Is this a good market for your company? Focus or go broke. Process. How does this thing happen? Competitive analysis. What do I need to know about what's happening in the federal arena? Teaming. Really important. And there's a key distinction we're going to share that a lot of people don't realize. Relationships. We're going to unpack the 5 players at the layers that successful companies build relationships with on the road to the win. And marketing and sales. What's that really taken? Oh, Mom, do I have to? And then we're going to identify your next win. So get out something to write on and something to write with, because you'll want to take a few notes. If you're wondering, can I get the handout? Absolutely. We'll tell you how to get that at the end. And we'll do a little bit of Q&A in the chat. If you have questions that come up, drop them in the chat so Kirk can forward them to me, and I will take what I can. But my promise to you is that one way or another, we will take all the questions we can until 12:40 Eastern. And after that, if you put your contact information and question in the chat, I promise I will respond to your every question. We good? Let's see ya. Thumbs up. All right. So strategy. The first question to ask is not who buys what I do, but is this a good market for my company? Should I be here? And I'm going to offer a couple of thoughts about what goes into that decision. This is one of the most overlooked pieces of federal success. And it's not only what the first chapter of my book's about, but I'm going to give away the first chapter. So if you're part of the 70% trying to make this decision, I'm going to give you the tools to figure that out today. All right, let's go. So why are you in the federal market? Here's some of the reasons that people say. And so drop a note in the chat. Is it, I'm a veteran, right? Veteran. If your big reason for being in the federal market is I'm a small business, right? Small in the chat. If it's, hey, government has lots of money. They print the money. How hard could this be? I want some of it, right? Money in the chat. If you want to smooth out the cash flow, right? Cash. And business set aside for us. Then, right, us, okay? If you have a product or service that you know federal agencies use, right? Fit, okay? So just right, let's see, we got veteran, cash, veteran female, veteran small business, cost savings, veteran small business, lots of small businesses, awesome. Let's see what else we're getting. Fit, Darby, I'm paying attention, boy. Fit, veteran small fit, Andrew, yay. All right, look, this is great. Jason, fit, yeah. All right, so next slide. Here's the deal. Companies that are successful in the market are in the federal market for one of these two reasons. First, something that we do something that federal buyers need, or being in the federal market and that whole effort aligns with our plans to grow the company. Those are the two winning reasons. So you'll notice business gets set aside for small business is not a sustaining factor. And we're going to talk more about why that isn't the winning ticket as we go. You'll see that within the next few minutes. Go ahead, next slide. So I love this chart because it debunks what people think is the reality of how you get the resources to be successful in the federal market. The way that people think it works, and I just put one slide instead of two here. So, well, I'm going to win a contract, and then based on the profit, I'm going to have enough left over to reinvest and grow the federal business. Wrong answer. Okay. The way it actually works, unfortunately, is you get to spend your time and money and cash and sweat equity up front and invest to learn about the market, meet the people, get to know people, find opportunities, write proposals. You have to invest lots and lots of time and money to win the work. And then congratulations, you won. When do you get paid? After you do the work. So you may be investing and shelling out time and money for 18 months, and then you win something. And then you have to survive for another 6 months or however long the project takes till you get paid. So having financial resources and good advice up front about how am I going to finance this is important. And this is why entering the federal market is not a trivial decision. Because if you don't fund your effort up front, it's going to suck time and money out of your back pocket. So it's going to get lifted out of your back pocket when you're not looking, or you're going to pay it up front and budget and spend resources in a deliberate way. Your call. So be in on purpose. Don't let this market distract you. Be in or be out. Okay, next slide.
Yeah, Judy, just to weigh in from the financial CFO lens, there really are financial requirements. The payment cycles are longer, the sales cycles are longer. So having the good numbers, meaning good financial reports, so that you can get a line of credit to finance this, and then that quarterly or monthly reporting required by the government is pretty significant.
Not only that, but your business provides you with a tremendous amount of financial intelligence and operational intelligence. If you're going to be in the federal market, you need to have a clear, detailed idea of your cost of goods sold. You need to know how much margin you have, because in order to be successful, one, but not the only element includes, is my price good? Can I price what I do competitively? And even if I'm priced higher than other people in the market, I'm also making money. So you have to know your profit margins, and a smart financial advisor, smart accountancy, smart financial strategist help you with that piece as well. So numbers matter. They're not the only thing, but next slide, please. Kirk is your friend. So, second piece, focus. And I want to discourage you from asking the wrong question that 80% of the people who are struggling in the federal market are asking. They're all wandering around going, where's the work I can win? Where's the stuff I can bid? I want to encourage you to flip over the question instead and think about, who is my buyer? Because the people who are successful are not wandering around bid boards looking for something to bid. Because I will tell you that if you get a bid notice that's set aside for something you can do, a business like you, well, great. But if you got less than 30 days to go and you don't know the buyer and you don't know the budget and you don't know the incumbent and you don't know the history, your odds of winning are in the single digits. The single most important information you can get from that bid notice is the contact information from the federal human associated with it. Take a step back and go, how could we make friends? If you take nothing else from our time together today, remember that. And that will keep you a little back from the edge of a big drop that can hurt you. All right, next up. Focus is critical. So I have a question for you. All right. What was the advice that Deep Throat Mark Felt gave Bob Woodward in the parking garage of the apartment complex in Roslyn, Virginia, in 1972, investigating Watergate? What was that advice? Put it in the chat. Who's got the answer for me? What was that advice?
Yeah.
Anybody know? We are old enough to know this, even if you saw it as a rerun. No, Kirk, you can't answer. What was it? And we have them. Yes, our first winner is Jeff Fismeyer. You will get a prize, Jeff. Follow the money is right. Next up, animation. We're animating this. Follow the money. That's right. So public money means public information. And this is a gold mine for you. Next animation. Next animation. So a long time ago in a story far, far away, next animation, this is a critical key to success. Imagine this, you have in the federal market something that never happens in the commercial market. Next slide. The federal government of the United States publishes over 250 fields of data about every single contract transaction that is based on a contract that is estimated to be worth more than $25,000 going back over 20 years. Blink. And it's available for free online right now. Seriously. And if you are not looking at that data, you better believe that your competition is. All right. The place with that, write this down, is the federal, there's a database that's changing. It was in a place that's just about to close and transition to the federal procurement data system. If you're familiar with that system, if not to worry. The place you want to be is beta.sam.gov, beta.sam.gov, and the part of the site on contract data. And I'm going to just drop that in the chat for you, okay? Because it's important. All right. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Michael. So beta.sam.gov, and then it's contract data. That is actually where there's more gold than the contract opportunities piece, which is supposed to tell you what's coming up. So you need to be able to focus based on past contract data. You can kind of spitball it. It's what I call qualitative approach. Kind of what's your gut feel? You have to pick a couple of agencies. So look at things like what are the characteristics of the clients we serve best now? Where are they located? How big are the projects? What problems are we solving for people who pay us on time, come back for more, send their friends? They know when your birthday is. Those people, those are your A-list people. What are their common characteristics? And then, which federal agencies have requirements and problems that are most similar to the people who already love you? That is a qualitative approach to focus. You can do that quickly and inexpensively. Next slide. On the other hand, you can take the quantitative or data-driven approach to making your choice for focus. And that's going to involve doing some data dumpster diving and looking at past contract data. The cool thing about that is not only you can choose with precision and choose federal agencies who are spending money on what you do. So you're pursuing people who have cash, but you can also see at a very granular level who they're doing business with now, when the current contracts expire, and the data is sufficiently detailed that you can identify the individual federal humans who have their signatures on the buying decisions. And that starts to unpack the relationships piece later. The advantages are that the level of detail can actually drive a really powerful sales plan and lead you right to their doors. It does take some skills, but it can build your skills that you need and also be the foundation of the plan. It can also take time. So cost, speed, utility, pick any two. Okay. You can do it fast and cheap, but it may not be as useful. You can spend the money and have something useful, but you may not get it as fast. You with me? All right. So next up, process. There are things you do have to know in order to play the game. If you were playing the sport from my home and native land, hockey, or soccer, or football, or whatever your sport is, you would not step into the playing arena if you didn't know the rules. Absolutely critical here. The rules are not obstacles in federal contracting. They are tools. They are instruments that people learn to play like conducting a symphony orchestra. Go next slide. Write this down. There's no such thing as selling to government. I'm going to say it again. There's no such thing as selling to government. There's only selling to people. At the end of the day, another federal human is going to have their signature on that document, and they have everything on the line when they choose you. About which more another day. But understand that if I would bet, what percentage, put it in the chat, what percentage of the business you have now comes at the end of the day from a relationship? Drop a number in the chat. Let's see what we got real quick. What percentage of your current business comes from relationships? Jason, 100%. He says 90, 100, 85, 100, yeah. 95, 80, 100, 90, 100. Awesome. Yeah. I have wonderful news for you. You already understand the most important thing about where federal business comes from. It's the same thing. You have to play the game a different way, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, but this is critical. Next slide, Kirk. So there are rules of the game, the federal acquisition regulations. You do have to know your way around them. The good news is you don't have to read all of them, but you do need, my challenge to you for the overachievers, and of course there are no overachievers on the line, right, is to invest the time to at least skim the table of contents of the federal acquisition regulations and understand where to find things. Because there's gold in them there regulations, and I'm going to pop a note about a couple of those at the end. Who here wouldn't mind winning a contract worth $10,000 if you could do one really easily? Just write me. Who would love to win a $10,000 contract if you could do it really easily? Me. La, 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 la. Yeah. Okay. So acquisition regulations tell you how to do that. People want to know, where are those posted? The answer is they come from conversations. They're not posted anywhere. Federal Acquisition Regulation Part 13 tells you all about how it's done. And in fact, a federal buyer could award work to you worth up to $250,000. And right now, if it relates to pandemic response, up to $750,000 by making 3 phone calls. This is why you want to know the rules. Next slide. Next animation. So who do you think the rules are there to protect? Well, I'm going to jump ahead and say that the primary folks that they're there to protect, next slide, are the buyers. All right. Contracting officers, contracting specialists. Understand that. And they're going to guide what you do, but you need to understand the rules so you understand the environment that your buyers have to do business in. Next up. Yep. Next up. Okay, so those of you who are going small business, okay, here's the skinny. The federal government has a goal to award 23% of its contract dollars to businesses defined as small. Small is defined in Federal Acquisition Regulation Part 19 for goods, if you're a manufacturer, by number of employees, and that varies by North American Industrial Classification System code, NAICS code. Typically, the baseline is if you're a manufacturer, you have less than 500 employees, you're probably considered small, unless you're in the aerospace industry, in which case under 1,500 employees is considered small. For revenue of services, small is determined by revenue. So if you are a fitness consultant and you have less than $7.5 million in revenue, you could be considered small. But if you're an IT services company, in that NAICS code, you could be small if you have up to $26.5 million in revenue. So you have to know the rules on that too. All right. So the federal government has these goals for not only for overall small business, but for participants and those who are qualified for specific programs, which you can see listed on the slide. Understand that nearly every federal agency is already meeting its goals for small business. Furthermore, while they have the authority to reserve or set aside contracts for small business, they don't have to set aside for small business. They just have to be able to say at the end of the year that they did or didn't meet their goal. So all of the awards to small business aren't necessarily happening through limited competition. All right. Not meaning to make anybody's head spin, but my big point is, hi, I'm a service-disabled, veteran-owned, woman-owned small business in a hub zone, is not telling anybody anything about what problem you solve. And the person who actually needs you does not wake up in the morning going, how can I award a contract to a small business? They wake up at 3 a.m. with problems, and their problem is not about small business. It's about delivering their mission. Lots of the people you'll meet in the federal contracting arena, the ones that are out there on the hustings, are the ones who want to fill their good faith effort file with evidence that they tried, that they talked to lots of small business. So if the people, you've met a lot of people in the federal contracting arena, and lots of them have the word small business specialist or small business liaison or supplier diversity on their business cards, those are not your buyers. So long as a federal agency has a file filled with good faith efforts that they tried, nothing bad is going to happen to them if they don't meet their small business goals. Okay? Take a deep breath. It's okay. It just means that what matters much more is what you do well. And that is what you should always be focused on. Next slide. They're not your buyers, the small business people, almost ever. Next up. So, I mean, look at these two slides, for example, from the Department of the Navy. The Department of the Navy Office of Small Business Programs is talking about lethality, alliances, performance, and affordability. Does it say on here anywhere? And this is the Small Business Office. Do business with small business. Not so much. All right. You want to do business with small business, provided the small business is helping you achieve these things. Everybody get that? Every single federal agency has their mission and their objectives on their website. If you have not taken time to learn about your federal buyer, they sure as heck don't have time to learn about you. Next slide. But do take a look at the strategic plan of your target agencies. Those are published online. And so you'll see some things about budgets, but the priorities and the language that your customers use to talk about themselves and their problems. How wonderful. What Fortune 500 company does that? Maybe you get an annual report. But public accountability opens up a lot of information. If you're feeling overwhelmed going, I don't have time to do all that, you don't have time not to, because if you don't do this work, you're going to spin your wheels, and that is expensive. Be in or be out, which takes us back to strategy. Next slide. You do have to understand how your specific buyer does business. The combination of the data and the acquisition rules show you that. You have to understand how they purchase. Next slide. And so think about contract vehicles, these methods of purchasing as a bridge between buyer and seller. Next slide. And so there's a list of all of these different ways. Next slide. Animations. All of these different things are bridges between buyers and sellers. A strong competitive analysis will show you, next slide, how to stand out from your competitors. And you want to be able to tell and look at the data to know who is buying, how they're buying, how much they're buying, and who they're buying from. Investing a combination of time and money. You can do it yourself with time. You can get help from a variety of sources, free and paid, to get these answers, but you need to get these answers because it will help you focus, help you figure out who you're up against, and also, next slide, where you're headed for when you're teaming. But focus or go broke. Next slide. Federal market intelligence cycle, people think that it starts on the upper right. Well, there's a forecast, and then there's a narrowing of the competitive field and an acquisition strategy. Then there's a competition, then there's an award, and there's contract data about the award, right? Next slide. Smart people, to move forward, look back. Who buys what you do? Take a look at the footprint of the data. Who is buying what you do? Get to know them and have those conversations early so that by the time, and this is how the smart companies do it, a requirement hits the street, you as the vendor have helped them define that requirement that then gets into the forecast. Everybody see how this works? It's absolutely legal. Your buyers, players at all the layers, can talk to you right up until the point where the door goes down and the request for proposal hits the street. Whether or not they feel safe talking to you is another matter. And that has everything to do with how you build trust and how you behave. Next slide. Lots of different sources to get it. Here's the slide, free and paid. I want you to just remember you're going to spend time and you're going to spend money. All you get to choose is the mix. Next slide. Having fun yet? So you got competition. Now what? Instead of thinking about competitors back and forth, I want to introduce to you the concept of a competitive mate. All right. You're going to team a lot of the time, but you also can't expect a teaming partner to bring things to you. I'm going to debunk one of the biggest myths of federal contracting. You do not go, I'm going to start by subcontracting. I'll sign up on somebody's list and they'll bring me things. No, they expect you to bring things to them. How are you going to do that? Focus or go broke. Next slide. So you want to tap the power of two or more. Next slide. Understand the buyer's perspective. The power of incumbency is great, but no matter how bright the smile, no matter how firm the handshake, no matter how pretty the suit, no matter how lovely your makeup is on Zoom, if they don't know you, next slide, the minute you walk through the door, all they see is a great big ball of risk, and they so don't like risk. So how do you break through? I'm going to tell you. Next slide. The buyer would almost always rather deal with the pain that they have than a promise of perfection and joy. If they wake up in the morning, at least they know they have predictable pain. Somehow that's actually easier. We're not going to talk about how many of us have just sat with ongoing chronic problems in our lives and our bodies and our heads because it's just too painful to go solve them. Your federal buyers are also very human in that professional way. And so what is it that takes us for pain to be bad enough that we want to solve it? Same kind of question. You've got to be the person, the professional, whoever it is that shows up and you're listening. You hear them and they go, okay, maybe I'll try you a little. Think of it just that same way. And you get a sense of the humanity and empathy that it takes to start to break through. It's a very human conversation. And because you are all relationship experts, you know how to have those conversations. And I'm so excited for you. Next step. Your partners in a teaming arena. I have interviewed hundreds of the top federal contractors, and here are the things they say every time. Bring us business. Where can you take us? Who do you know? Customer intimacy. How are you different? What do you bring that somebody cares about? Can you show us who you've already done this work for and what they thought of their experience in working with you? Price and financial strength, cash flow, financing, that absolutely matters. Do you have, especially if you're in a professional services arena, low turnover, high expertise? Sometimes your differentiator can be as easy as location, location, location. We are 200 yards outside the chain link fence at Patuxent River Naval Air Station. Great. Are you dependable? Do you solve problems? If you had a big problem on your last contract, that not only isn't the kiss of death, but if you identified it and resolved it and prevented bad things from happening, great. Now you'll notice what flavor of small business that isn't even on the list. Yeah, these large primes all have big obligations on small business, but they're legal obligations. So they are going to make sure their good faith effort files are absolutely filled. They're not in danger of not meeting their small business obligations. So don't even start there. There's a big difference from saying, hi, I'm a service disabled veteran on service, a woman-owned business in a hub zone. What do you got for me? And hey, I've just been over to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and they say they're going to die if they don't have what we've got. Want to talk? That's seductive. That will always get you a meeting. Next slide. And in real life, I don't really talk this fast, but I wanted to be able to get through these steps, and I have time to listen to you and hear your stories. It's tough to do this as a one-way, but I really want to get to know you. What kind of partners don't seem excited? This is why they don't seem excited by what kind of small business you are. Next step. Next slide. They're already meeting their goals. And so you have to come in with what business you've got and what your differentiators are and how you're willing to bring things that you can both win together. Next slide. Relationships, players at the layers. Write these down or remember these. Go ahead. There are 5 players at every layer, every federal agency where you want to win business. Next slide. And you want to know who they are. If they may say things like, oh, opportunities are all online. They're all on beta.sam. Or just keep bidding. Or you got to have a GSA schedule. They're speaking to you in code. If you hear them say these things, what they're actually saying is walk off and die. So you need to, if you're hearing these things, they're not cheering you up. They're saying, go away. You are not telling us you've done your homework and you don't have focus and you're not speaking our language. Next slide. What they actually care about. Go ahead.
Hey, Jude, real quick. Ben has a question about how do you get a GSA schedule?
Please write, if you want the answer to that question in 6 minutes, I got to get through what I got to get through. If you put your contact information in the chat or email me, I will tell you that. The short answer is you write a proposal. And after that, you spend a lot of time and money actually marketing. So it's a bigger conversation. I got stuff on that. And I got something coming up called GSA Schedule Rescue Camp at the end of July. And I'm happy to invite you. Next slide. They want to know, do I know you? Do I like you? Do I trust you? How can I get to you? Next slide. And people have different layers of concerns about this. There are 5 people you need to meet. Here they are. Go ahead. They are. Go ahead. The small business specialist. Remember, they're not your buyer. They are counting on goals. The more work you do, the more help they can be. They can be helpful, but they don't buy from you. Next slide. Contracting officer has a power the President of the United States does not have. That's the legal authority and warrant to bind your company to the government of the United States to deliver what you do. They are involved in choosing vendors, but they're usually not the ones stuck with the consequences of who they choose. Next slide. That is the end user. And there's a lot of players in the end user bucket. And so you also have to find them and talk to them and woo them so they also know you, like you, trust you, because they are stuck with the consequences of what happens when somebody chooses you. Next slide. Stakeholder. They think of somebody who is tied to the stake and tarred and feathered if things go tango uniform. All right. The stakeholder is not your buyer. They're the ones who are making the big speeches. People get so excited to meet the stakeholders when they go to the conferences. Yeah, right. But they're not your buyers. Those aren't the ones that you need to woo. There are specific ways that you can woo and court and have relationships with stakeholders, but pitching them is not one of them. Next up. Don't forget the prime contractor. That prime contractor may be in the account. They may be competing against you. They may be someone you have to team with. But those 5, end user, stakeholder, prime contractor, contracting officer, small business specialist, 5 people every single place you go. You've got to know. Next up, if you're not overwhelmed, cheer up. You will be. But these are solvable problems. These are learnable things because marketing and sales, how to get in front of buyers, is the critical piece. Next step. What's a lead? Next slide. Somebody whose activity and role and visibility points the way to a potential opportunity. Next step. It's like a detective story. You've probably seen whatever your favorite detective or police procedural might be. They're doing what you have to do. Looking at clues. They talk about leads. They talk about leads as humans they have to talk to unpack a story. You're going to do very much the same, which is why data is your friend. Next slide. 5 federal lead sources you'll need to know. Next slide, plus 1 more. These are free, and working with them in a methodical, systematic way once you have focus. You can see that if you don't have focus, you'll go nuts. If you do have focus, you have so much to work with, which is why I love the federal market. Next slide. Who loves you? Start with people you know. Odds are good that you already know 1 or 2 people who are just 1 or 2 layers away, 1 or 2 degrees of separation from somebody in the federal market who needs what you do. Conversations, looking at who you know in a systematic way, and then thinking, how close can I get? Who do I know? Who can introduce me to somebody who needs me? Next step. Okay. Here's the 2 most important pieces of advice that people give when they're successful in this market. Start small, be persistent. Next slide. That includes thinking about what you could do for less than $10,000. Have some ideas. What could you do for less than $250,000? You're not going to wander around with your feed me list and wave it at people, but have small ideas in mind, a study, a report, a something. I'm going to be giving a webinar about simplified acquisition and micro purchase at the end of August. I'd love to have you. We'll share how this is done. It's great. It is possible to turn a $10,000 report into $1 million win in 6 weeks. Jennifer Rhodes at Tagents did that. It's possible. I teach my clients how. Next step. So just remember that you're not alone. We are in this together. Relationships create opportunities and momentum. Taking consistent action is what builds success in a methodical way. Next slide. We covered a lot. And I hope you had more fun than you've ever had on a federal contracting seminar in your life. Next step. I have resources for you, but the 4 big essentials are the federal sales game. But beef up and buff up your federal sales game so you know who the players are at all the layers. Focus. Get a competitive analysis done and make your focus decision based on hard data with confidence. When you've got your focus, build a structured federal sales plan around just those agencies and then use the plan. Another day, I would love to tell you how I learned that this is how it's done and why it is that this is exactly what I do and only what I do when I work with people on their path to success in the federal market. Next slide. So with all that, drop into the chat. What one thing do you commit to doing today? Or what one thing did you learn? Let's see. What do you got? Love to know.
Yeah, and Judy, I just want to echo, I mean, as an independent person here from a growth CFO mindset, I mean, you do help companies build that top line, win contracts. So if anybody wants to have a chat with an expert, it'd be worth doing so with Judy.
Kirk, are you going to share the recording if somebody's on the line?
Yeah, we're definitely going to share the recording.
Great.
And
if somebody wants the handout, you can contact me and I will share the PDF with you.
Yep.
And next slide. Look at these things. Yeah. Recording. Yep. I've got, I would be happy to answer your questions. It looks like we are slammed right up on 12:40, but I'm going to drop my email address in the chat so that you can, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn and we can do this. Okay. So it's judy.bratt@growfedbiz.com. Oh, com. Let's spell com right. There we go. Next slide.
There we go.
And we have resources for you real quick. Next slide. So if you can grab chapter 1 of my book for free, I'm going to throw the link right in the chat for you. Okay. So you can do that. All right. Because I want you to have the strategy resources and figure it out. Okay. And so grab this link. You can get the PDF of chapter 1 of my book for free. All right. And again, email me and I'd be happy to stay in touch and have a conversation. Okay, next slide. I've got stuff coming up. If you're interested, I do a second and fourth Wednesdays, I do a come together. Kevin Hoey, former Marine Colonel and business development professional for General Dynamics IT, is my guest tomorrow between 1 and 2. These are informal discussions. They go where you want them to go. Recordings are only for people who show up. Safe space. Google is at it again with Ocean 5 Strategies is on July 16th, and GSA Schedule Rescue Camp is going to be on July 29th. These are all free. So again, the link in the chat, if you wanted the chat to the book, Mario, I'm just going to put it there again. Oh, I see it was all panelists and attendees. There we go. Sorry about that. That's the link to the book. And then judy.bratt@growfedbiz.com is where to find me. We did it.
Yep.
Kirk.
Hey, you got through, and just to compliment what Judy's doing, we work kind of hand in glove. So we help make sure that you have the financials, you're using them like a scoreboard to drive results. For the companies that need to get bonded, you can get through underwriting with minimal disruption. And then, it's all about, on some level in the government space, relationships, and then your pricing. So having the right indirect rates, both the provisional and the actual, having it worked out pretty well so that we can price competitively and win, and then use the numbers to deliver that work and protect our profit margins so that you actually get what you wanted to get out of the contract, the work. So not to mention, make sure that you can get through DCAA's audit, because they do come out and check things. Defense
Contract Audit Agency. You can be compliant with those requirements, even if you're using QuickBooks, but you've got to get professional help to get stuff into shape. And you don't want to do that just 2 days before you submit your proposal. If you're in, be in. Don't mess around.
Yep. That's great. So Judy, thank you so much. We're at time. There's some questions.
I have time to hang out. If you've got to go, I understand.
Yep. And so Todd has a question here about what about local PTAC
Oh, yes.
offices? Are they
So
free?
there is free help available. If you're not aware of the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, I'm going to put the link in the chat here, aptac-us.org. Procurement Technical Assistance Centers are funded with your tax dollars in mind, 50% by the Defense Logistics Agency and 50% by a local partner. There are over 100 of them across the United States, and they are there to help large and small businesses win state and federal and local government contracts. Their help is free or low cost. They are still in business providing services remotely and online. They can offer you counseling, contacts, content, all the C's that you want. And so you really want to tap their advice. If you're not familiar with your PTAC, click on the link I put in the chat, click on the map, find the one near you, meet the boys and girls. Use up the free stuff before you pay people. Okay?
So that's fantastic. So there's one more question in the Q&A box that we'd answer, then we'll wrap it up. And it's does the focus of knowing customers prior to the RFP drop apply for large vehicles like GSA IT-70 as well?
You bet it does. Because when the federal government can make a very large purchase in less than 14 days if they post an opportunity on a GSA schedule. But when they do that, odds are really good that somebody's already been talking to them and they know who they want to do business with. They put that out there so that they can be clear to the world that they actually shopped. But the real success with those of you who are GSA schedule contract holders, if you are struggling, I will tell you that rather than emailing people or waiting for stuff on GSA Advantage, on eBuy, you've got to get to know, go deeper, pick a few, really get to know people in advance. It absolutely is the game changer for you.
It is. And just to echo that, I've seen a lot of very technically competent people in what they do. Mm-hmm. And they literally follow the proposal process. They submit.
They do everything they're supposed to.
Right. They don't win. But
this is what I call novels for strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you really need to, if you're struggling with that, what if you I challenge you, write half as many proposals and take the other half of those resources and invest them in getting to know people, because the cap over the wall strategy is really expensive because you also lose the morale and the support of your talented proposal team, because they give up when they give everything, including their nights, their weekends, their family time, their talent, and they never win. Yep. If you can't set them up for success, you will lose them and they will go to your competition.
Yep. And it just kind of one last comment. If you're not in GovCon, that 70%, diversifying your business, say roughly a third into GovCon is a wise move for long-term viability. The purchasing cycles are different for GovCon. And that helps harmonize some of your cash flows.
But only do it if it's a good fit and you are ready to invest. So take a step back. There is no true low-hanging fruit. It is not a bonanza. Be in for the long term. Data shows it takes companies a minimum of 12 months typically to win their first contract. So be ready for that. It can happen sooner. That's the good news. So make good decisions. Grab the first chapter of the book. Let me know what you think. And I'm here for you. Yep. Thank you, Kirk.
Judy, thank you so much. And I will talk with you soon.
Okay.
Everyone, be well.
Bye-bye. Bye.